this video, I'm going to introduce my new project. It covers a couple of things that I've been trying to achieve lately. The first is I've been looking to replace and update my FDM 3D printers, which are currently i3 clones. Get something a little more modern, but mine are getting tired. The current ones I have are mostly now getting on for or just over 3 years old. And the second is having more fun with my Banana Night models. They started off as a bit of fun and have grown into something now that's quite popular. And I've been thinking a while, wouldn't it be fun after doing statuettes, 28mm and really little tiny ones, to print a giant one, maybe a couple of feet tall, maybe even bigger, and instead of painting it, print the parts and cut it so that the parts are actually the colour that they should be already in the plastic, so I don't have to paint it. My 3D printers have been serving me well for a while now. I have both filament and resin printers to suit my different needs. Particularly my filament printers are getting a bit tired now. They're around 3 years old, as I think I mentioned. I'm keen to take advantage of new improvements and print qualities on newer models, so it's about time to change. I've always tried to stick to cheap and cheerful printers, somewhere in the middle ground of consumer units. I want something standard, open source, but also with a company and a community behind it, so I can get that support and, as you do, give it back later. Originally, my choice 3 years ago was to go with an i3 clone, just because of the standardization and the community support. Specifically going with the Wanhao range, the duplicator i3s and pluses. I've just pulled this one out of the workshop as an example, but they're all pretty much the same, or over the time as updates and newer versions have come out, and I've liked that feature, like the magnetic bed, etc. I've done minor upgrades as I've gone along. But after looking what was in the market today, checking actual user reviews online, forums, and specifically friends who 3D print, I was pretty set on the choice being one of the Creatality models, particularly the Ender 3, or later, after a bit of thinking, the Ender 3 Pro. I'll go into why I chose that later. What broke the stalemate and snapped me out of it was a message via Thingiverse. I will put a link down below to my Thingiverse profile so you can see my things. It was from a lady at Banggood to see if I'd like to review any 3D printing equipment, which I've looked at and helped people with in the past. But specifically she said, would I like to review anything like an Ender 3? That was the suggestion. So of course that instantly snapped me out of my indecision, and I thought, well, that's perfect for me, as I could test one and then commit to a purchase for a whole replacement set if it turned out to be the right printer for me, as I expected. Well, I ended up agreeing to review and test the Ender 3 Pro. After looking at some of the known issues and common upgrades to the Ender 3, I thought I might as well start with the Pro version. There was just a couple of things like the upgraded power supply, and at the time the magnetic bed and a few other bits. I thought, well, I'm only going to end up buying and adding these on, so I might as well start with the Pro. I must also note that no money's changing hands for the review, and I have agreed it's going to be an honest review, even if the outcome is negative. At the end of the day, if this works for me, I've got to invest in buying a few of these to replace my current i3s. The only extras I'm going to test are the optional upgraded silent motherboard. Quite a few people mentioned this to me when I was looking at buying the Ender. It's a complete replacement motherboard. Its main feature, and everyone seems to call it the silent motherboard. There's a lot of complaints that, with a lot of 3D printers to be honest, and the Ender included, that they're noisy. I'm lucky enough to have mine in a workshop, so that doesn't really matter. I will fit that at a later date once I've started the test, however. I want to give it a fair test as is. I also have a decibel meter, so I can do a proper before and after test and get some real results in the quietest place I can find, and then I'll be able to do a proper comparison after I've actually got to know the printer. Lastly, I've also got original Creatality PLA for the main part of the test, which, of course, because the banana stud on it is yellow. Being in the UK, the only online retailer of any substance that I can find that stocks genuine Creatality PLA is Banggood, so I've got that from there also. I'm going to test with third-party PLAs and plastics as well, and possibly ABS, but certainly PETG, because I use a lot of that, because I would expect the printer and I need it to use third-party filaments to print things as well. Just a little bit about the night print itself. I've done the tiny 15mm, 28mm and statuette sizes. The idea is to print one as large as sensibly possible using the Ender platform. Still cutting and chunking it up, which I'll explain in a second, but one of the main differentiating things I wanted to do was print using the coloured plastics to actually build up the character without painting it. So obviously yellow for the body, silver for the armour, and I will probably do a peeled banana, so a cream for here and then my normal grey for the base. I want to print him as large as possible, so if I'll just get a piece of paper and explain how I intend to actually cut him up. When it comes to large format prints, what most people will do is use a piece of 3D modelling software. They will hollow out the main character and then use some sort of plane cut function to effectively cut him into a grid, into squares, and then they'll print each one of these pieces as a small part and stick him together. I want something a little more solid, and I'm willing to sacrifice a bit more plastic, so I'm not going to hollow him out. I'm going to leave him pretty much solid. I won't do a very large infill, but instead of cutting it in this lattice pattern, I actually want to print in the colours, so I need to cut him into pieces. So take off arms, legs, his head, and cut him out in a bit more modular fashion to fit him, and then so I can get it bigger again, look at these pieces on how I cut them up. So do I take off the hand, take off the sword, take off his knee plate, his foot, etc., so then I can print it bigger. So that's going to dictate for me how large I can print him. I've got to work out which is the largest part. I don't want to chunk up anymore, whether that's for aesthetic reasons, like I don't want a big line potentially through there to show, because I'm not going to model and paint it. That will dictate, that'll be my largest part, and then that'll dictate how big the rest of the model is. We'll see that in the next video. I will go into the process of cutting him up, which is a lot harder than doing it that way, and we'll see where it leads us on how big this guy's actually going to be. I'm also not intending to do a basic standard review of this printer or build. There are hundreds of those videos on YouTube already. They're largely what's influenced me to pick the Ender and understand about its capability in the first place. I'll do another video which is a comparison of the old i3s to the Enders. I know there's quite a few people out there with an i3 clone of some description who are also thinking about an Ender, so that might help. I'll do that as a separate video. Keep an eye out for links below, subscribe, etc. And I will, on my Thingiverse page and profile, I'll put a link below to the project so you can follow along, and I'll post the videos on there as well. I do just want to say a little bit about the packaging. When it arrived, it got this big piece here caved in and a corner here where obviously other parcels have been thrown on it and it's been damaged. However, needn't worry, if you look inside, it is very well packaged. Bespoke cut foam segments for each part, even where it's come in here, look, really thick foam. And of course it's made really well in the first place, so no need to worry there. Everything is in its place and as a home, and inside here, as well as the instructions, is a complete set of tools for building it. Build and the test print are complete. Here she is. The instructions for the ender were absolutely fantastic. They were great. I think if you can follow a normal flat pack build, like a bit of IKEA furniture or similar, you'll be absolutely fine with this. On all my new printers, even if I've had the model before, I like to use the official test print that's supplied with the filament just after I finish the build, to make sure I've given it a fair test. It rules out any media or slicing skills I may or may not have. I think it just gives me that peace of mind, especially if I encounter an issue later. Is it me? Is it the printer? It gives me that quick benchmark. The i3s, as they are, I've got a few, so I end up with a load of these hands. You get the OK hand printout as the test print, and on the resin printer I use the Photon, which I'll put a link down to that below. Actually, you get the lattice cube. With the ender, it was a choice: a dog, a cat, or a cow. And a small girl in my household told me that it was going to be the dog. So let's take a look, and I'll fill you in on just a couple of observations whilst building it. There is one thing of note I want to mention about the ender build, something I came across that wasn't mentioned on most of the build videos, and certainly not in the manual, is this section, the build platform, the controller in the bottom. It comes pre-built in the box, and the first bit of advice in the build is to start putting the side towers on and the control box. However, one thing I noticed, there are a set of screws in the side here and the side here that actually hold these side bars here and here and this bottom together. And particularly on mine, they were screwed together quite tightly, but when you put it on a flat surface like this, the whole thing, the whole unit would rock, and it would rock like this quite badly. I've got it on an uneven surface here just to kind of, if you like, demonstrate, and that's because they weren't screwed in straight. So the first thing I did was loosen the screws on either side using the provided Allen key. It's standard as all the other build screws are, and put it on a flat surface. I used a piece of old kitchen worktop. You could use your actual kitchen worktop, anything that you know is a flat top, not like this leather top desk. And then just loosen those screws, don't take them out, and then just push the whole thing down and let it settle flat. Because if you have it out of flat and it's not straight true, as soon as you start building up the top, everything else is going to be out, and you're going to get everything binding. It's going to be a nightmare to level the bed. The one YouTuber that had mentioned this issue, like myself, had multiple 3D printers, and he did say that out of the multiple enders he'd purchased, 3 out of about 5 came that way or had another little loose screw on the pre-built part. So it's probably just worth loosening them off, level it out, tighten up the other screws that are already there just before you start the build. So the test print on the ender completed fine. After the build, I rushed to level the bed to get the test print started. I was really keen to make sure the basic functionality still worked after me putting it together. I probably rushed the leveling on the bed a little bit and some of the other checks, but I really wanted to get the test print printed successfully. It did. The little dog came out, and I'll be honest, it absolutely shocked me, surprised me at the quality. People had said, oh, upgrade your printers, Mike, the quality's better, and particularly recommended the ender, but the quality of that print and the layer lines is absolutely fantastic. I do appreciate, obviously, it's the one provided by Creatality, and it will be designed to set up and show off the machine, but it is one of the best FDM prints I've ever seen in the flesh, and I'm not exaggerating there. Lots more to do, but initial tests, for me rushing it together, fantastic. So I will finish this part of the project now. I'll put links below to the items that I've mentioned before that Banggood supplied, including the printer itself, the optional extras that I've mentioned. Certainly at the time of recording this, Banggood are celebrating their 13th anniversary in business, and there are several things on deal. And when I was getting the links together to post down below, I did notice the Ender 3 Pro, this exact model, if you order it from the China warehouse, is one of the things on discount at the moment. So if you're quick, you'll get even more money off there. I will link down below now to my Thingiverse profile, the specific thing where I'm going to manage this project. If you're a Thingiverse user such as myself, it's where I hang out. You'll know what I mean by that, and you can actually follow that thing, so you'll get updates as I add the files for the large bananas and as I update the videos. You can also subscribe to this YouTube channel. I'm obviously not a YouTuber, but if you subscribe to this, you'll get notifications on the videos, and then you can link back to the files the other way. In the next video, I'll go into the final setup and configuration of the ender. I'll do some more experimentation with it, get it all tuned up, and get ready to print with the third parties and other PLAs. And we'll go into the work I'm going to do to cut up and prepare the banana model for actual printing. And again, I'll upload those models and parts up to the Thingiverse thingy, the program.